How can you serve a God that allows so much suffering in the world? A God that allows things to happen to innocent children? A God that allows good people to die young? How do you allow yourself to serve a God that does not seem to intervene in nothing bad that's going on? Valid question. Understandable question. And that question is deeply rooted in this idea of free will. A lot of us look at God and say, we don't want a God that's a dictator. We don't want a God that's controlling. We don't want a God that is, just ruling and telling us everything that we should do and not do. We want to still have choice. We want to still have choice. And amongst us still having choice, we think that we should only have choice and no one else should have choice. How do I know? Because a lot of us, when we ask this question, how do you serve a God that allows wickedness in the world? We also assume that we are separate from other people. We live an isolated life, but we don't live isolated. There's moments in time where your things that you're doing that you consider a small sin, when all sin are the same, where your sinful life comes across someone else's sinful life and you intersect. And your sin at that time might not be that big. Maybe you just had one little drink. Maybe you were just, doing something that was minor. And they're doing something major. But it does not matter with your minor sin and their major sin if both of y'all end up crossing paths. Because now you've crossed paths and there's a potential for collateral damage. You experience some trauma, you experience some hurt, you experience some pain. You experience something that you never thought you would experience before, all because you intersected your life with someone else who was living their life. Is that God's fault that two individuals cross paths? Is that God's fault? When two individuals that was operating in their free will cross paths. Okay, let's make it a little bit more nuanced. Is that God's fault when someone operating in their free will and someone else operating in God's permissive will cross paths and it still causes problems? Is that God's fault? No. That's not God's fault. People have a right to choose. People live their life how they choose to live their life, with God or without God. And people that choose to live their life with God, that does not mean they are excluded from people that choose to live their life without God. So yes, there is going to be wickedness in the world because someone chose to be wicked, while someone else did everything right and so happened to come across the path of someone wicked. Is that God's fault? No. Did God allow it to happen? That's probably the wrong term. Allow. He allows us to do anything. But will he intervene? Yeah. Eventually he will intervene. But it's not his fault of the damage that happened. It's not on him, the fact that when he allowed us to choose, people chose to choose a certain way. For example, I used to wrestle with God a lot when I was in his permissive will, and I was giving him a yes when I felt like it and giving him a no when I felt like it. And things had happened, traumatic things, where as I was asking him to help me heal, he had to change my perspective. When I was in a moment of brokenness from grief and someone else had crossed my paths who necessarily did not have the same upbringing as me, did not have the same outlook on life as me, did not view life the same way I viewed life. They did not have the same principles and values as I did. And yet they came across my path while I was grieving. And it caused so much damage. And I had to ask God, I said, God, why'd you allow that? And it wasn't necessarily that he allowed it to happen. It was the fact that people have choice. People have choice. In that night, in that day, in that moment, there was a choice that was made. I chose to do what I was doing at that moment. That person chose to do what they were doing at that moment, and it caused damage. Is it God's fault? No. Was I hurt? Yes. Was I disappointed in God? To a certain extent, yes, because I thought God was going to do more for me. I thought God would protect me and shield me. Not saying he's not a protector. But when I say protect and shield, I looked at God as though he would put me in a bubble. And in that bubble, it would not allow anyone to come around me and harm me. We are not in bubbles. We are not in bubbles where we look at things and we go out of our house and we're just in this little shield. We are not in shields. We are living our life while someone else is living their life, while other people are living their life, and things happen. That's life. A world full of people living and moving at their pace of life. You can run into someone that's having a good day. You can very well run into someone that's having a bad day. You can run into someone that's having a mental health breakdown. You can run into someone that simply is like, I don't want to do life. And because they make that decision of, I don't want to do life, and they're on a highway driving, and other people are driving in their cars, and they're having a conversation that's business, and they're having a conversation with their family, and they're having an exciting conversation about the thing that's coming, and they're still on the highway with someone else that don't want to do life. And that person decides, because I don't want to do life, I'm going to just give it up right now. Cool, they decided for themselves, but they also made a decision that's going to impact everyone else that's on that highway. Is that God's fault? No. People make choices. People make decisions. Would we like God to always step in and keep us from the bad choices? Yes. But you can't just have God keep you from the bad choices and not help you guide you through the good choices. You can't have God and say, you know what, God, I want you to just tell me what I should do when it goes real, real bad. But don't tell me what I should do when my life is going good. You can't cherry pick when you want to follow God. You can't cherry pick when you want to listen to God. And to be honest, that question of how do you trust a God that allows so much wickedness in the world is simply rooted in the fact that we only want a God that will just be a savior. We just want a God that will only do the good things for us. God is not a genie. He's not a genie. And as much as God is true in his character, he is kind, he is omnipresent, he is omnipotent, he is good, he is faithful, he is a judge, he is just. As much as he is all these things, he is love. We don't choose God. A lot of us still choose the fact that we want to have free will. And God is never going to force you to choose him. God is never going to force you to live a life for him. He's going to give you a choice. Think about it like this. When you go into a relationship with somebody, you choose that person. And with that person comes their pains, their past, their expectations, their shortcomings. It comes all these things when you choose to get in a relationship with that person. That was your choice. You chose to connect yourself to that person. And now because you are connected to that person, you are held to whatever expectations they have. You are held to do the things that they're expecting you to do. You are there with that person and connecting to their destiny, their purpose, their calling, their past, their traumas, everything. You are connecting to that person. But you made that choice to be with them. It's the same with God. When you choose God, when you choose to live a life for God, you're choosing his standard. You're choosing his boundaries. You're choosing his laws, his rules. You're choosing his principles of living. You are choosing what he is standing for. Don't look at God as though he has to be dictator in order for him to be good. Or he has to shield the world from anything bad for him to be worthy of being God. Because in the beginning, everything was good. Everything was perfect. And the one thing that he gave in the beginning that he gives to everybody was choice. He gave us choice. I'm going to give you choice. Though I'm letting you know the boundaries, though I'm letting you know what's off limits, I'm still giving you choice. Don't eat from that tree of good and evil. Don't eat from it. And why did he say no to that? Because when you have too much knowledge of something and you're not prepared to handle that knowledge, it can be traumatic for you. So God isn't saying, no, you shouldn't drink and smoke. No, you shouldn't have sex outside of marriage. It's because he knows what comes with that. So he's telling you no to protect you, but we don't like the no because we want to choose. If you make the choice, it's not God's fault because you made the choice. People make choices every day. And it's not the choice that you're going to always want them to make, but it is their free will to choose. That's not God's fault.